Hello everyone. In this video, I will review with you the methods, functions, and classes in Python through Lab 3.4.6 from DevNet Associate course from Cisco. This lab has 5 parts. The first part, as usual, is how to start only the virtual machine, which is in this one that I'm using now. And the second one is about our part number 2, it's about functions and methods and the classes. So what is a function? So let's take a look. For example, I will use the Virtual Studio. And then let's start a new one and select language. We will choose Python. And then like this. And here let's see what is a function. So we have a function and we have a method. So what is the difference between them? Let's explain this through this example. And I'm going to save it under the name lab or function and methods. As you can see here, the name. So let's assume that we have a list which has 2 elements. When we are talking about a function is used by you can call a function by using a function invocation method. So we have here in Python, there is a built-in function called length, and this length function returns the length of the list or any argument like a dictionary and so on. So here, let's use this function to return the length of this list, and we are like putting the value in a variable called x. This line, which is line number 2, called function invocation. Then let me print now the x. And then let's run this one. And as you can see here, the output is 2 because the list has 2 elements. I can run it here again using this method python3 and the name of the file, and the output here, as you can see, it is 2 again. Okay, so next, what is the method? The method is also more or less similar to a function, but it's always called by an object. So long story short, we can use a method only after an object, and we can distinguish a method from an object or from a function by the concept of the dot. So as you know, we have a method called append, which is used with the list. So here we have the list, and this we have a method called append, and there is a dot here. So since there is a dot, it's called by a list. So this is a method. And as you can see, the function invocation line is not the same like a method invocation, since there is a dot in the form. Okay, so now let's print the list. And as you will see, the list now has 1, 2, and 4, or let's print the length of the list, which as expected should be 3 because we extended the list by using the method append. So as you can see here. Okay, so to recap, the main difference between a function and the method is that the method is represented by or can be called by an object, and there is a dot and a line to call a method. In the function, we can use the function invocation in this line where there is no need to put a dot, and we can build our own function, or as we will see in a couple of minutes, or we build our own method by using the concept of object-oriented or classes. Okay, so let's move on and let's see how to define a function. Now, we are not going to use the length function, which is built in by Python. We are going to build or define our own function. How to do this? In Python, as you know, we type def at the beginning, and then the name of the function, as you can see here. The name of the function now, it is myCity. This function has a parameter called city, and then colon, and then we press enter. Notice there are 4 spaces under the div of the function, and then we are going to print here I live in. Then we put the concatenation, we put here plus again, and then we put a dot. So that's it. This is a function now. We built a function, and let's learn now how to call this function. To call this function, we use the function invocation, which is calling the function itself, which is myCity, and we put the parameter between the parentheses, and since we are passing a string, so we put the quotes, and as you can see here, there is a parameter which is should be assigned when we call a function. So let's say city xyz, and then let's call it again with function invocation, when we say abc, and then let's run here. As you can see, now the output I live in XYZ or I live in ABC. Okay, so this is all about the function. What is the function one more time? We put the keyword def at the beginning and then space, the name of the function, and then we put parentheses, and then we define parameters if needed. And then we do whatever we need as long as under the diff we have to make sure there are 4 spaces or 1 tab before the code line, and then when we would like to get out from the function, we call the function in the main program. And of course you can run the program by using run if you are using Visual Studio, or you can type Python 3 and the name of the file, and now I have this file funmath, and then press enter. Okay, so let's move forward and let's talk now a little bit about method. So in part 4 we are going to define a class with methods. When you would like to use a method, you have to call the method by using the concept of dot. So when you should use the dot, you should the dot after an object. So when there is an object, so there is a class, so you have to build the class now, and inside the class you have to define a method that you can call in this form. How to define a class in Python? I'm going to use the same file here, and to define a class you type the keyword class and then space and the name of the class, and here is location as given by the instructor, by the tutorial, and then we put the colon after the name of the class. The first function should be in the class, as you know, it should defined with this form of the function, which is diff and then 2 underscore and then initial and then 2 underscore again. Here, this is a special function, which is, as you know, if you already know other programming languages. So this is a constructor. One more thing, so the constructor here, before we move forward, the constructor should be defined in this form, which is diff and then initial with 2 underscores, the beginning and the ends, and then the first parameter here should be self. So if this constructor needs more parameters, so self should be there as long as there is a function inside the class. Now we need to put name as the first parameter and then country. Okay, so we have a name and we have a country, and then as a normal function, we define a function and then we put the 2 colons, and now you can see now we are far from the beginning of the line by 8 spaces or 2 tabs. The first one related to the class, the second one related to the function or the constructor. So when you would like to now mention or use any of these parameters, you should start with the self and then you put the name of the parameter and then you call it now name here. Again, the self and then again the country. Then we assign it with the parameter country. Okay, so this is the constructor in this class. Each time I will define an object to the class location, this object will have the self, will have, sorry, a name and a country. Okay, so let's now create an object from this class. To create an object from this class, we give a name to the object. Then we should call the name of the location or the class. And then we put the parameters here, which is 2 strings. Let's say here ABC, and then in the country, let's see here, let's assume that there is XYZ. So this is like we defined an object, this object from a class location, which we have a name and a country. For the name we assigned ABC, and for the country we assigned XYZ. Okay, so now let's print from the location we are going to print the name, which is, of course, we are referring to this characteristic, or this, the object has 2 characteristics now. So we have, let's say it like this, there are name feature and there is a country feature. So let's print this one, let's see if it's fine. And you can see here ABC. So let's highlight this function, we don't need it anymore. Let's run again the program, and we should see only ABC. Okay, so if you would like to reach the second characteristics or the second feature, we can say there is here country. So we accessed a variable called feature to an object called location. Okay, so now we would like to define a method inside this class. Okay, so to do this, we can define now a method. Let's return to the class, and here we have to make sure that we are under the same level with definition, and then we are defining a method. The name of the method is given here, like my location. Okay, and don't forget always there is a self. Then we put here the colon, and then this function only does the following. This function prints that I am in city, and then let's give like a comma, and then let's say self dot name, then comma, and then self dot country. Okay, so when I call this method, I will print out I am in city, and then self dot name from this one, and then the self dot country, which represents this one. Okay, so let's do this, and at the end let's print the type of this location. So let's print first the type of this location. As you can see, this is a function because there is no dot inside the vocation line, and also it has no like it's already defined in Python itself. And now let's learn how to call this method from the function location. We already defined an object from the class, so here we are going to call from the class, and now we put my location, as you can see the second one, and it has no arguments or no parameters, so this is a method here. Why? Because there is a dot, as you can see here in the invocation. Okay, so let's run this line or this code. As you can see here, this is replace the loc.name, and this is the country, and then the type of this loc, it is in the main location. Here there is the main. It's also a special function in Python. There is also another one called name, and there is another one also called module. However, and then I called this method, which is loc.myLocation. This is a method which is defined already inside the class, and it's called because it is only valid until the object called loc. Of course, one advantage of using a class or object-oriented programming is that you are free to create any objects you want. So you can create another object, and here we will call it also location from the class, and now we have as a name HHH, and for example as a country we would like to say that's NNN. And you can also call a second location by using the method here, and you can just let's highlight these. And this, let's run this, and we have now actually two objects. You feel free to add more objects and you change the name and the city as you want. But for me, I will move forward and I will review with you the complete code. So here we have a class. This is the name of the class. Here we define the constructor. There is values. This constructor has two parameters. The first one is self. It's mandatory to use it because it represents that this object that is currently used. And here we have the name. We put it in the object name, and then we have a country which is put it in the country. So these two called variables or class variables, and you also can call it like a feature for any object. Here we defined a method, or they defined a method, and this method has to print only this line by mentioning the name and the country of the current object. And here we have creating an object. The location is Thomas and Portugal, and then we call the method. Here we have another two objects, and then we call the method, and so on. In part 5, we are going to create a class, and this class called circle class. And in this side, this class, there is a method called circumference, and this method returns the circumference value. And also, we have to give as a parameter the radius. So the class is written here. So I will walk you through the class and then I will run it here in Visual Studio. So here we have a class, the name of the class circle, and then we have a constructor. In the constructor, as you know, we have the self, and then we have a radius. And then for any object is created in the constructor, the radius will be inside the self radius, which is accepted, used or assigned when creating an object. And then we are defining a method, the method called circumference, and then this method has no parameters. In this case, we only need to put the self, and then we define a class variable called pi, which has the pi value 3.14, and then the circumference value pi multiplied by radius multiplied by 2, and then this method returns the circumference value, which is this one. Okay, so we have another method. This method prints the circumference value, and then we have the circumference value we called from this method function or from this method, and then we print the value using this line. And this is all about the class. Now we move forward and we can see now we have one object with value 2, and then print the value here, calling the print circumference value. This is a method. We have here another object, and here we call the method again, and here we have a third object, and here we call the method again. So I'm going to copy this, and I will just paste it here in the same. Let's just review if everything is fine. So here let's run this one. As you can expect, there is expected as intended in the block, so let's do it manually. Okay, so as you can see here, we have the output. Let's make it bigger now. And let's run the file one more time, which is Python 3. And then the name of this file, which is function Python. And we can see here we have the output from the first or the circumference of the first object, and then second object, and here we have the third object according to this program. Okay, so let's see it again one more time here. I just fixed out the indentation. So here we have the class, and I have here 4 spaces or 1 tab for the constructor, and then I have 8 spaces. And also here I defined, or the function defined here, and then I also kept the indentations with the also print method also here. And here we have created the object, and then this is the method. As you can see, there is a dot here, so this is a method which is defined under the class itself. So I think that's all for this video. Thanks, and see you in the next video.